This podcast is proudly sponsored by Durham. Durham is a block-based chain business with the mission to support the minor league baseball players through the trading of its RBI token. While these baseball players are professional athletes, they are often underpaid and struggle to make rent, afford good food, pay for gear, and support their families. They train and perform at a high level in order to make their dreams of playing in the big leagues a reality. But at the same time, a lot of these players need a second or even third job in the offseason just to be able to afford basic living expenses. The mission of Durham is to support these players by putting money directly into their hands so they can use it for personal needs and focus more on the game of baseball. By allowing them to focus on what's important, Durham is helping to create a sustainable pathway to success for players and supporting the entire minor and major league baseball system as a whole. This project works by collecting a small tax on every transaction of the crypto token. These taxes are sent to a treasury, which is used to make payments directly to the players in the form of Durham sponsorships. The amount of money in the treasury is directly dependent on trading volume, so the more people who buy the token, the more funds will go into the treasury to use for the mission. As this project grows, the value of the token will rise, which creates a great opportunity for investors as well as the players. For the tech savvy, Durham RBI token has a 10% buy tax and a 15% sell tax, a deflationary burn mechanism, multi-signature protection on the treasury wallet, and a liquidity lock of 100 years. To get invested with the community and support the mission, purchase RBI with Ethereum. Visit durhamenu.com for the official contract address and Uniswap link. All right, I am excited for my guest today, a pitcher in the Marlins organization, drafted in 2019 by the Miami Marlins out of Louisville. Bryan Hoeing, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing well. I was telling you right before we jumped on here, we're supposed to get snow tomorrow in April. I'm like, what is going on? We're getting a couple inches of snow supposedly here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't miss that Midwest, the northern weather at all. That's for sure.
Yeah. So you grew up in Indiana, so
Yeah,
that's pretty Midwest.
yeah, that's the definition of Midwest, I feel like.
So how has your spring training been? Like, what have you been up to?
It's been good. Like I said, the days aren't too bad at all. We get in there about 8 o'clock or so, leave about 2 or 3 o'clock, and honestly, it's just good to be around the guys again. The off season's nice and whatnot, but you start to get that itch to kind of get back down here to spring training after the new year. But no, it's going good. I'm just ready to get into the season here, and it starts in a couple of weeks.
So what is like a typical day in like the minor league side of spring training? Because like the minor leagues is sort of like a mystery sometimes to us who watch baseball because we don't really know. We see like the big league camp and all that, but what is like the typical day during spring training for you guys?
So for me, it's a little bit different because I'm a pitcher. So the hitters like to give us a little bit of crap because the pitchers' days are way easier, I'd like to say, than the hitters because they're out there all day, fielding ground balls, taking batting practice and whatnot. But for us pitchers, our main job is honestly just to go out there and, get our arms loose and work on our pitching. So you can only do so much out there. So for me, you go in there pretty early, get your work in, stretch out, kind of get your body right for the day. And then once you feel like you're ready, all the guys go out onto the fields. And us pitchers, we stretch, we condition, we throw, and that's honestly about it. You might have a lift that day, but if not, your day is basically over. So it's a nice little setup for sure.
Yeah, it's incredible. And I was telling, I had Nick Bennett on, I've had Kate McClure
Okay,
on,
yeah.
I've had a couple other guys from Louisville, and I just had Zach Britton on 2 episodes ago, and I was telling him this might be an unofficial Louisville podcast now because I've had
honestly,
I've had so many
that's
Louisville guys on.
That's a good list of guys right there. Those are my boys.
Yeah, so like we'll talk about that in a second here, but let's start like in before then in high school, you were the number 4 like ranked pitcher in your state of Indiana, and Indiana's a pretty good hotbed for like baseball nowadays. I feel like it's been producing a lot of good talent. At what point did you realize you were just absolutely like dominant in baseball?
I will say that to your point, Indiana is a little bit slept on with the baseball talent because it's like I said, it's an up north state, so people think all we really do there is stay inside and play basketball and whatnot. But there's actually been some really really good talent coming out of Indiana. A lot of guys, honestly, now in the big leagues, a lot of guys in the minor leagues knocking on the door to get to the big leagues, all from Indiana. But for me, I started playing travel baseball at a young age. I would say maybe 11 or 12 years old. And that's kind of when I had a thought that, baseball could be part of my future pretty seriously too. and the talent in Indiana, I was playing with the Indiana Bulls, a great organization who gave me a lot of good opportunities to play and travel and compete against the best competition, around the country. So I would say once I started playing with the Bulls, I had a feeling that baseball might work out for me in the future.
How did you stack up against those guys? Because obviously that's travel ball, so you have a ton of good players on there. Like, did you feel overwhelmed, or are you pretty much like you went toe to toe with the guys, and you're like, all right, I can hang.
Yeah. Well, for me, I only played league baseball in a
Mm.
small town in Indiana, Batesville, Indiana. So we were about an hour away from Indianapolis. So I was kind of oblivious to how that all worked. But once I joined the Bulls and got up to Indianapolis and started playing with guys around the city, just everywhere from the state, I realized there's actually a lot of good talent out there. But no, I held my own. I did well. I met a lot of good teammates with the Bulls who I still keep in contact with, which is great. But no, they did help me out a lot with the Bulls organization.
So then, what were your stats like in high school? Because I mean, obviously, you're like I said, you're number 4 ranked pitcher in the state. Like, what were you just absolutely like just lights out, like game over? Like those kids in the Midwest stood no chance when they came up to you.
Uh, I don't know the specific stats off the top of my head, but I will say, yeah, the area where I pitched, I did well. I did well, especially when, like you said, you interviewed Zach Britton.
Hmm.
He was 2 years younger than I was. So once he became a freshman, we kind of had that battery connection where I was pitching to him, and man, it was awesome to have him back there and the trust with him back there calling the pitches and whatnot. Um, but it all comes back down to the talent in Indiana. I mean, we got out of sectionals one year, but we faced a really good team in the regional, and we got bounced in the regional game. Um, and it's crazy because we had two dudes on that team that are now playing professional baseball. And I'm not sure the team we lost to if they have anybody playing professional baseball or not, but the fact we lost says a lot to how good the talent is in Indiana. But yeah, it was fun playing for Batesville. We had a great time there. Just playing with the guys I grew up with playing for a long time. Ever since I was about 6 or 7 years old, and then to finally go into high school ball with them was great.
All right, so you mentioned Zach, and I got to bring this up because he had mentioned this the last time I talked to him, and I tweeted at you
Yeah,
this. So he was telling the story about how they literally had to shag balls and they couldn't do BP.
yeah.
Like, what were you? Did you ever have to shag the balls when he was out there doing batting
So
practice?
so my first 2 years, or I guess sorry, my last 2 years, Zach was a freshman and a sophomore. So yeah, at that time he was putting ball as a freshman and a sophomore. He's 14, 15 or 16 years old. He's putting balls over the fence pretty easily as a 15 or 16-year old. And I go on to Louisville, and then he's still got 2 years left of eligibility with the high school team. And yeah, the word around town, and especially in the town of Batesville, it's a small town that it's like, Zach Britton during batting practices putting these balls, on top of these houses in right field. And I believe it because I know how good he is. And sure enough, yeah, there's dudes out there, standing in front of houses, making sure the ball doesn't hit the houses. Like I said, man, those houses had no chance. I mean, they were just going to get peppered all day long with him taking BP. So it was cool. I was in Louisville hearing about all these stories about him back in Batesville, and it was awesome to hear about
That's incredible. And like I told him, like he's legend, like hated and loved by people
that.
in
Yeah,
that area.
exactly.
So how was the recruiting? Or actually, let's talk about this. You played multiple sports. Like, you weren't just a
Yeah,
baseball player. Like, what else did you play?
I played basketball. Yeah, I played basketball and baseball in high school. It's funny because in Indiana, like we're known for basketball.
Right.
So honestly, growing up, my first love, my true love was basketball. Baseball was kind of just something I did on the side because I was, I don't know, it was just something to fill up my time in the
Hmm.
spring and the summertime. But my main focus each year, up until probably middle of high school, was I was ready for basketball season. And it helped me out. I was a little bit taller than everybody else, so it came a little bit easier at the beginning. But man, I loved it. I never played AU basketball, but high school basketball in Indiana was just different. We would sell out gyms, a lot of talent around that area. It was just, yeah, it was awesome
So would you say your school was more of like a basketball school, just given
for
like
sure. Yeah,
just given like Indiana and the state of like it's just
yeah,
known for basketball, like and producing talent.
yeah. I would say definitely for basketball. We've had a lot of good talent come through baseball high school with basketball. The town it does a really good job about rallying around the town with basketball games. Like I said, our gym probably held, I want to say maybe 4,000 or so, 3,000, 4,000. And a Saturday night game against a in conference opponent, those gyms would be packed. We actually had one game where we were playing our rival high school 15 minutes down the road, And halftime of the JV game, so the junior varsity game, the varsity hasn't even played yet. Um, they had to close the doors of our gym because it became a fire hazard. There was too many people there in the gym. So they actually closed the doors, and I'm telling you, the atmosphere in those high school basketball games was something different, something you really don't get with
Yeah.
baseball because it's outside,
Right.
but with basketball it's indoors, and man, it gets loud and it gets your adrenaline pumping for sure.
So you played basketball and you were a starter on the team, and then you played
Yeah,
baseball for the team. Like, so I asked Zach this. So were you like just one of the big guys on campus and like big dog on campus? Like you were the basketball star, baseball star, getting like off. You got drafted like 6 times.
yeah, right. It's crazy. Uh, I would just say from a small town, yeah, there was a lot of attention. I would put it that way, a lot of attention. Um, but it was all good. You know, the town very really supported me, and I loved it. I love where I came from. Um, and it was exciting. Like I wouldn't trade that for anything. Small town, everybody knows everything. So yeah, like you said, like once word kind of got around that I was getting recruited with baseball, and then also I was pretty good with basketball on the side, things kind of escalated for me to say the least.
Were you getting like scholarship offers for basketball as well or no?
Yeah, yeah. I visited a couple of schools to play both in college. I took visits to some Big Ten schools for basketball recruiting visits, and like I said, man, basketball was my thing, so I was loving it, and I was going to take advantage of those opportunities because I grew up, dreaming about that type of stuff as a kid.
That's awesome. And so like what
Yeah.
what Big Ten schools were we talking about like for basketball? Like what how heavily were they recruiting you? Like was it more than baseball at that time?
I would say it was about even. It was about even. The schools I visited with basketball were, a couple of them were Indiana, Purdue, Butler,
Wow.
Michigan.
So some like
Um,
legit like some
yeah,
legit basketball programs.
yeah, some legit ones. And I never played a second of AU basketball, which is the craziest part because my summers were, full of travel
Right.
baseball. So these coaches, as far as the level of recruiting, we had Brad Stevens would come at the time. He was the Butler head coach. He came to our gym. Matt Painter. I talked to Tom Crean. So yeah, it was exciting for sure.
So when you chose baseball, all these Big Ten basketball coaches' hearts were just broken because you decided to go the baseball route.
Yeah, well, I told them at the beginning. I said, "Hey, look, I also play baseball," and not they didn't really know it at the time. They thought, if someone's recruiting you from, Indiana, Purdue, Michigan, Butler, these schools probably assume that if you're getting recruited from these guys, like obviously you're going to go basketball route. But I had to let them know. I was like, hey, look, I actually like baseball as well, so I'm actually going to, ponder both options. And they all knew that, and it came down to it. I talked with my family, and just the best decision for me in my future was to go the baseball route, even though it was tough kind of put an end in the book with the basketball.
Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
has to be a hard decision to make because I mean, like you said, you're good at both sports. You
yeah.
have that
So
that privilege and the opportunity to pick where you want to play, like whether it's baseball or basketball. So then, like, how were the recruiting visits for basketball, and like, did they differ much from like the recruiting visits for baseball?
yeah, I would say the baseball visits were more specific, more intent. The basketball was kind of like they knew I liked basketball, so every time would go to a school, the baseball coaches did a really good job of setting up recruiting visits with the basketball coach there. So I would go, talk to the baseball team, whatever, the coaches, the staff, administration, and then they'd be like, "Hey, come talk to the basketball coach as well." So it was kind of like the main focus was the baseball recruiting, but also with the side of talking to the basketball as well.
Okay.
But also, I then have a couple of visits where it was just mainly basketball too. So, but the majority of it was baseball for sure.
How was the decision then to pick Louisville? Because I asked Zach this, I asked a couple other guys this, because like you look at their record and like what they've done over the last couple of years, or just a powerhouse, like a breeding ground for just baseball players. They have baseball players
Yeah.
all over every team, right? In the farm system. So how easy was it to just to pick Louisville and be like, look, I can go here. There's a good chance I'm going to get drafted again.
Yeah.
Um, how was
Like,
that
yeah, like
process?
you mentioned, man, it was the tradition for me and the coaches, the staff. They did a great job recruiting me. They really made me feel like they cared about me, which they did. And I looked up to those guys who played there before me. They really set the standard for all of us. Some big time names who, like you said, got drafted and everything. So I felt like for me, it was the right fit to go there and kind of follow in those footsteps. And I thought if I went to Louisville, that would give me the best opportunity to pursue my dream of playing professional baseball, which that absolutely did. But it was tough. I had it down to a couple schools, but also, Louisville being only 2 hours away from me allowed my family
Mm.
to come down and watch me. So it was the perfect distance where I had my space
Mm-hmm.
between,
Mm-hmm.
being at home, and also it was close enough to where my family could come watch me. And also it was in the ACC, one of the best baseball
Yeah.
conferences in the country. So the competition in that league was tremendous.
Yeah. So you got drafted right before you went to Louisville. Like, did you expect that to happen, or it was just kind of like, oh, cool, but I'm still gonna go to college?
Yeah, I had a feeling I was going to get drafted. My senior year, I actually underwent two actually major surgeries. I shouldn't say major, but specific surgeries on my knee and my arm. But at that point, I was like, I think my best route is to go to Louisville and kind of get my body right, to get back to healthy. But I did have a feeling, yeah, I was going to get drafted out of high school. But after those injuries, man, I was just set on going to Louisville and get my body right, and then going from there.
Okay, I respect that. So
Yeah,
obviously you go to Louisville, a stacked team, like they have talent everywhere.
yeah,
How was it joining a team that was like loaded with talent, as well as like trying to like stand out, but also like fit in with
yeah.
like the group to win like the ultimate, which you guys didn't, but like to you're battling for that national championship.
Yeah. Um, as mentioned before, I was coming from a small town. So in a small town, you're the big fish. You're the man on
Mm-hmm.
campus. Everybody talks about you and whatnot. And then the first day you step on Louisville, it's like everybody else who's with me was also that big fish. And
Mm-hmm.
so I get there, and it was just talent on talent. And honestly, it made you want to compete and work hard, because every day those guys are working hard too. The upperclassmen were good. They were good leaderships, and yeah, it was a good culture on the locker room, and for sure. And I think my freshman year we had maybe 4 or 5 guys, 3 or 4 guys get drafted in the first round. So it's like really really eye opening.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you're like, the stuff here at Louisville does work because you're seeing it with your own eyes.
Yeah.
So
Was there anybody on that team that, as while you were a freshman, kind of like took you under the wing, showed you the ropes, kind of like introduced you to Louisville culture, I guess, in the baseball?
yeah, I would say Cade McClure was a big one for me. Me and him kind of, bonded. He was a basketball dude as well in high school who also played baseball. And me and him bonded really well and just kind of talk. And he kind of took me under his wing. He was only a grade above me, but
Mm-hmm.
still, even in the upperclassmen that kind of take me under his wing and show me the ropes, um, was very, very helpful for me at my time at Louisville. Guys like Zach Birdie was good for me. And there was plenty of others. I'm sure I'm forgetting a couple, but a lot of those upperclassmen were
Mm-hmm.
great for the freshmen and whatnot. So
That's awesome. Who was your guys' biggest rival? Like what other university was like every time we go there like there was some tension?
yeah, no doubt Kentucky,
Kentucky.
UK. I mean, I think they're like hour and a half away from our campus. But it means more for those guys in state, those Louisville guys who end up going to Louisville to play. That I mean, I knew they grew up hating Kentucky and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And so I'm from out of state, so I kind of came in, and then I kind of had to buy in on the rivalry. And then I realized how much of a rivalry it is, and it's one of the best rivalries in the country, I believe. But every time we played them, it was intense. They always had some good squads. We put up some really good games. But yeah, it was definitely Kentucky.
Okay. So did you ever consider going to Kentucky before you chose
Yeah,
Louisville?
Kentucky was actually the first school. It's funny. The first school that recruited me. My cousin, my first cousin, actually went to Kentucky to play baseball, and so he kind of was like, "Hey, Kentucky's going to reach out to you, just so you know." And yeah, Kentucky was the first school that recruited me. Funny, believe it or not.
Yeah, so you could have been on the other side of that rivalry. Like no matter what, it would have been that Kentucky Louisville rivalry. But
Yeah,
you ended up on the
yeah,
good side. I mean, like I said, I'm a Louisville guy now. Like I'm cheering for them. And I'll
that's
say
what I'm saying.
this.
Yeah.
I had a stat here. I was trying to pull it up, but I think like Louisville has lost one game since like I interviewed Zach Britton. Like I'm not gonna say it's me,
Oh, really?
but like I feel like I'm sending those good vibes, and like they
You
were
might be
unranked.
the good luck charm.
I
You
might.
might be the
I.
good luck
That's what
charm.
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I told him. I said we're probably going to end up in the World Series this season or this year
Just
because
say
like,
if they get there, that better be the team that you root for.
oh, it is. I'm cheering for them. I'm cheering for them all the way. Like I am now officially. This is like I said, just like almost an unofficial Louisville pod. I won't say it is, but I'll say that's going to be my high school. I'll see. I tweeted at them the last time I interviewed him. They didn't like a retweet, whatever. I'll do it again. I'll see if they can kind of get some traction going on
Yeah,
from them, and we'll see if they can they'll get
Maybe
my
if you bug them enough, they'll finally reach out.
exactly. That's what it is. All right. So
Yeah,
after your junior year, you got drafted again.
yeah,
That season, was it similar to like San Francisco? Oh no, that was San Francisco, right? Who drafted you?
yeah. That
Was
was the
that
Giants. Yeah,
yeah? So how was that? Like, were you ever considering that again? Like, like this is a second
yeah,
opportunity.
yeah. So my freshman year, I actually had Tommy John surgery. So I sat out my freshman year of baseball at
Hmm.
Louisville, and so with that being said, I was able to redshirt that year. So my junior year in the classroom was honestly my sophomore year on the field. So I only
Okay.
had 2 years of playing under my belt when the Giants, drafted me that year. And so I had some leverage still. I could go back for my junior year of baseball.
Hmm.
Um, and that's what I did. Obviously, I pondered about it. It was a tough decision. I went out to the Cape Cod League and played a little bit, and they came out. The Giants came out and watched me a couple times, and at the end of the day, it just didn't happen. I'm glad with the decision I made. The Marlins are a great organization I'm
Hmm.
with now, but it was definitely a tough decision at the time to turn that down.
How was the Cape? Because that's obviously an incredible like summer league. Like, how was that experience?
It was great. I was fortunate to go there 2 years.
Hmm.
Stayed with the same host family both years, and they're a wonderful family that I'll always keep in touch with. And it comes down to the talent. Like I said, everybody across the country, the
Hmm.
top players, in the country go there and compete. And it's just a cool area. It's like obviously on the Cape with the water, and it's just very historic. The fields are awesome. The crowds are great. I had 2 great summers out there in the Cape Cod League. It was a great time.
I love that. So all right. So going back to getting drafted, you decided to go back for your junior year, senior year, but junior year of
Yeah,
eligibility. I
correct.
would probably say that worked out, right? Because
Yeah,
because you end up getting drafted a ton higher than the both of the previous times. At
yeah.
that point, like, did you think the Marlins were like? I know you fill out questionnaires and all that. Like, were you pretty confident they were going to draft you? And like, how was that experience like?
It was a surreal moment. Like I said, I grew up, playing
Hmm.
baseball my whole life. At a young age, I knew I wanted to be a professional baseball player. Everything I did, I worked hard for that, and for that moment to finally come, it was surreal. It's funny. I was actually on a golf course in Louisville when I found out that I got drafted because I knew I was probably going to get picked up that day, and I didn't want to. I'm one of those guys where I can't just sit around and think about when am I going to get picked up, when am I going to get picked
Hmm.
up.
Hmm.
So I went out and golfed with a couple of buddies, and my agency called me and said, "Hey, you're about to get picked here." And I said, "That's awesome." I'm in the middle of the golf course, still playing, and sure enough, I can see it. I get called from one of the Marlins front office people, and they tell me, um, and yeah, that day changed my life for forever. I'm thankful for that opportunity that they gave me.
So you didn't even have a draft party. I know, like, so I
No,
saw
no,
some guys who do, some guys don't. I respect both ways.
yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like
no draft party. Yeah, no draft party for me. Like I said, I wanted to keep it low key, and yeah, low key as far as playing on the golf course, and yeah, no draft party for me.
it's kind of a power move, though, right? Like I'm gonna get drafted. I'm not gonna stress about it. I'm just gonna go play golf and chill with the boys.
Yeah, yeah, in a way, I guess you could say that.
So, like, I ask this question a lot. Like, when you first get signed, obviously, like, we're not gonna talk about the money and amount, but you got a decent amount of money. Like, what was like the
Mhm.
first thing you bought that maybe like not say a dumb purchase, but like just the first big purchase that you bought, whether it's a car or a chain, some jewelry. Like, what was going on?
Nothing. I mean, nothing really stands out, honestly. I like to think I'm smart with my money,
Hmm.
and I didn't really go off and buy anything crazy. I guess I got drafted in 19, and then in 2020, I got during COVID, I ended up did get a car. So I guess that you could say that was my first big
Okay.
purchase. But other than that, man, it wasn't anything crazy. I'd
Okay.
tell you, it was
No, I
not anything
respect
crazy.
that. I
Yep,
respect that. What kind of car did you buy?
an Acura RDX.
Okay.
RDX. Yeah.
Yeah, super
So
cool.
yeah.
So were there any other teams that were you were thinking may draft you, or did you know it was going to be the Marlins?
I had no idea. I really had no idea, and honestly, that's kind of like on the agency side. They deal with all that, which is great for me. It kind of
Hmm.
makes it less stressful for me. I don't have to worry about negotiating and talking to teams because I know it's a hectic process. And like I said, I had no idea he was going to pick me up, and all of a sudden my agent called me and said, "Hey, it's going to be the Marlins," and I said, "All right, sounds good. I'm ready to go."
That's incredible. All right, so you
Yeah,
talked about playing in the ACC, right? Like a ton of good teams.
Yeah,
Like the travel is nice, like the accommodations is nice, and then you
yeah,
go to the minor leagues, where it's maybe not so much nice. Like how
yeah,
was that adjustment? I guess well, you took 2020 off actually because of COVID. So
yeah.
what did you do during that year actually?
In 2020,
Yeah, like how did that
I
work
was
out?
yeah, I was yeah, we had no season.
Yeah.
I was back at home just working just working out and trying to stay in shape for the next upcoming season because we at that time we had no idea, when baseball was going to
Yeah.
come back. It was a scary moment for the game for
Right.
everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I was back home in Indiana at that point just working.
Okay, so then, so like the adjustment from, because I asked Kate this, and he said my first thought when I got to the minors was, I wish I was still in college baseball. And I'm like,
Yeah, he's
I
right.
feel that, I feel that, right? So what was that like experience like? Did anybody warn you, like, look, man, like this is gonna be a huge adjustment for you?
Yeah, I mean, you get some warnings from people, and you're like at the time, like in college, the pro guys come back
Mm-hmm.
from Louisville, and they're telling us some stories, and you're like, all right, like it can't be that bad,
Yeah,
right? There's no way it's that bad, and you don't really realize how brutal it can be at times until you go through it. Yeah, it's like I said, in 19, I was in Batavia, New York, small town in New York. And then in 2021, I was in Beloit, Wisconsin. So my first two affiliates I've been to with the Marlins have been, smaller towns and not much to do. So, yeah, you gotta find ways to have fun with your time there.
yeah. So you talked about the two small towns, and a lot of minor league stadiums are in these smaller towns.
Yeah.
What's one city that you traveled to and you think to yourself like, where am I? Like I'm never coming here again.
I would say honestly, Beloit was definitely one of those options. Like, where am I even at?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another city would probably. I mean, I know it's a bigger city, but Peoria, Illinois. Last year in Peoria, Illinois, our hotel was in the middle of a cornfield. Like you look out every window, and it's just corn. And I'm used to that coming from
Yeah.
Indiana, but some of my teammates they were in shock. They're like, "What is going on?" I'm like, "Yeah, this is part of the Midwest right here."
Wow.
But yeah, I would say that was probably the one that stood out to me.
All right, so I'm glad you mentioned Beloit because I asked this question and a lot. Beloit is like the answer I get so many times, and like I told you, you had to put in your Twitter bio like Beloit Snapper Survivor because now they're not the Snappers anymore; they're the Sky Carp, right? Sky
Yeah,
Carp,
yeah,
and now they're with the Marlins organization. I was reading about this; they almost got canceled, like they almost got rid of the team unless they were gonna get a new stadium because like they weren't meeting any codes
yeah,
in terms of minor league. The minor league was like, hey, dude, y'all gotta like either get a new stadium or like we're just gonna cut you
yeah,
guys out too. So,
yeah.
what was your experience like coming from somebody who actually played there as like your home stadium?
Yeah. So before we went to Beloit, some of the guys, the office people with the Marlins, they said they were just like, hey, look, it's not the best scenario. Like you guys are still gonna have fun. And I'm like, all right, it can't be that bad. And you
Mm-hmm.
get up there, and I'll tell you what, it was something else. It felt like the surface of the playing field was grueling. We didn't get very many fans. I would maybe say we averaged probably 50 to 100 fans a night. Um, so there would be times in the dugout where you got to whisper to the dude next to you, or else you felt like the other team's going to hear you talking across the field. It was that quiet some nights. Um, but yeah, it was like I said, it was called Pullman Field. So that field has been there for forever. And you get out there, and it's yeah, like I said, it feels like you're at a high school field. I didn't play at a field probably that brutal since high school. So that kind of took me back. It humbled me up a little bit. Said, hey, look, even though you're a professional athlete, look,
Mm-hmm.
you're still gonna have to play on a field like this. But yeah, there was times where we're warming up in the outfield. You got to be careful of rolling an ankle or getting hurt or anything like that. But they did just, as you know, they did just build a new stadium that's beautiful in Beloit. So we got able to play in there halfway through the season, thankfully. So once we moved into that new stadium, it was night and day compared to the first stadium.
You know, I've seen pictures of the new stadium, and I was telling you I'm going to be going there when maybe there might be their opening week actually or opening weekend. Then I'm going to be heading out there in a couple weeks. So I'm excited.
Okay.
You won't be there. I mean, you'll be double A probably. Fingers crossed. But if you
Correct.
are
Yeah.
there, I'll holler at you. But so I was told that like the showers and like the locker rooms were like dirty dirt floors. Like what was that like? Was that true or people were just exaggerating?
Not the showers so much. The showers are fine. The showers are fine. The locker room was small. I wouldn't say dirty because we had a clubby there that would clean up after us. I mean, we would clean up after ourselves
Yeah.
the best we could, but the clubby would each night, each morning, we'd come in there and make sure it was spotless. Every time we came into the field, the locker room was clean, but the locker room was very small. Old locker rooms, like I don't know when that field was built, but it was probably the same locker rooms. The very first day they built the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Old fashioned wooden locker rooms. But it wasn't bad. The weight room was connected to the locker room, so you could be in the locker room getting ready for the game. You look to your right, 10 feet away, there's a guy working out in the weight room. So it was this crowded. It was really crowded for a bunch of dudes there, but we made the most of it. We had a really great time there. The guys there were awesome.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm going to the new stadium soon. I'll update you. I'll let you know how my experience
Yeah,
is. I'm excited to look. I'm looking forward to it. I've been to the old stadium. Obviously, I didn't think much of it. I mean, I just felt like it was a typical minor league park. But
mhm.
now that I hear all these horror stories, I'm like, okay, maybe it was just a lot worse than I imagined because I wasn't playing on the field.
Yeah.
Were there any cities that you visited that you're like, wow, this is incredible? Like I'm having the time of my life. Like, what were some of your most favorite
Um,
cities to visit?
I would say the highlights of last year, the cities I like to visit was South Bend was really cool. South Bend only being a couple hours away from Chicago, they really take care of that affiliate there with the Cubs.
Mm,
That city was beautiful, good crowd, good playing surface and whatnot. And it was right next to Notre Dame campus. And I'm from Indiana, so it kind of hit different too for me because I was kind of relatively back at home in the state of Indiana. So South Bend was one of my favorite spots. Um, Other than that, I mean, they're all kind of the same. They offer the same aspect. There's always decent crowds, but I would say Beloit was probably the worst in our division. Actually,
mhm.
without a doubt, it was the worst in
Yeah.
our division. So
and,
yeah,
and that's why they got rid of it. Good for them, getting
yeah,
a new
exactly.
stadium. Shout out to the city of Beloit.
Yeah.
So do you have any like funny, like interesting minor league stories or experiences with fans? Because I know like in these stadiums, like especially even like Beloit, they're like right up on you. Like you can almost like feel them like a couple feet
Yeah.
away from you. Like, do you have any funny interactions with fans, or maybe like a funny minor league story where you're like, that's like the epitome of minor league life right there.
Yeah. As far as the fans go, nothing crazy.
Hmm.
There honestly it was worse in college with the fans. The college fans were more on you than pro ball so far, at least. The fans are pretty respectable. I mean, you get those occasional, dudes that,
Yeah.
that chirp you a little bit, but it's one in one ear out the other. You don't really
Hmm.
pay much attention to it. I would say for me, I don't know how crazy this is compared to other minor league stories, but my first minor league story that kind of opened up my eyes, like wow, this is crazy. Was we were in Oh wow, it was in 19. We were playing the Indians short season affiliate. I can't remember where it. I should know that, but I don't know where it's at. And we get back to the hotel, and our hotel is out of electricity. And it reminds you, it's dead in the middle of summer, and so it's probably it was probably 90 degrees all day. We get back, and the hotel electricity's been out for I don't know 5 or 6 hours. We get back, and we got to play the next day too. Like, thankfully, I didn't have to pitch the next day, but like our starting pitcher and the guys who are going to play the next day, I mean, our hotel is probably 80 degrees or so in the hotel with no electricity at all, and you got to find a way to somehow get some rest and play the next day. So that was my first moment where I was like, wow, this is an absolute grind.
This is
Stuff
not the
like this.
ACC anymore.
We can't, yeah, we can't just pick up our stuff and go to a different hotel. This is where we're at. Like, you got to deal with it. And so we found a way to. We were playing cards in the lobby with our phone flashlights on and just trying to make the best of the situation. But yeah, that was eye opening for me. No electricity in the hotel, and it was middle of the summer, hot. So yeah,
Yeah, that's crazy, and that's incredible because that's like the absolute like epitome of minor league life, right? You can't just move
yeah,
move to another state or another hotel or motel. You're just stuck there with your
just
phones,
thought, yeah.
playing
Yeah, and
cards
if you
with.
wanted, I mean, you could take yourself to a different hotel, but nobody wanted to do that. So you're all just like,
Right.
let's just sack it up and make the
Yeah.
most of it.
And does it kind of help you? Like you mentioned, like you're with your guys. Like, does it kind of make it easier? I mean, not maybe easier, but maybe easier to deal with knowing that you're going through it with all these other guys, and it's not just like only you, but it's like you're
Yeah,
with your boys.
I, I tell people all the time, if it wasn't for my teammates and my friend, I don't even look at them as teammates anymore. Honestly, they're just my
Friends.
my friends at
Yeah.
this point. It makes the process so much better and so much more fun. If they weren't, fun and great to me, then the minor league life would be, you know, a real big grind. But these guys coming in the day every day, We're able to joke around. We have a good atmosphere in the locker room. We're all from all over the country, which is great. So we got different backgrounds. And we've all been around the game for so long. We kind of have that same personality. We all click and mesh really well together. But it's crazy because we're all competing for obviously we all want to be, in the big leagues one
Mm-hmm.
day. But at the end of the day, we're still rooting for each other. We want the best out of each other, which is awesome.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
What is like your pre-game routine? Like, are you a superstitious guy? I know some baseball players are, some aren't. Like, where do you fall in that category?
I would say on a scale 1 to 10, I'm like a 2 or 3. I
Okay.
got like a couple things that I got to do before the game. The days I pitch where I feel like I got to do that, just kind of get my mind right. And I mean, I guess the one for me is just like the same compression shorts. Like it's washed, but I got this, this pair that I like that are really, really comfortable. But compared to some other dudes that I've seen, I mean, it's nothing compared to that. These guys go, above and beyond to make sure that they got their superstitions down. But yeah, I don't consider myself a big superstitious person.
What are some? You don't have to mention names. So, what are some like the more funny like superstitions where you're looking at the guy like, does that really work for you? And like in their head, they believe it does.
Uh, I would say it even starts like before you get to the field. Some dudes take the same car route. Like if they have a good game, they'll drive the same way that they did, but the day before, if they had a good game, to the stadium, just to give them that chance of
Mm-hmm.
repeating that. So the car route, what they wear to the field, same pair of underwear,
Mm-hmm.
shorts, shirt, whatever, pants, shoes, socks. Um, and then I mean, I guess that's basically about it. So I guess it's not too crazy, but I'm probably missing a couple things that I'm aware of. But yeah, those are probably the two things that stick out for right now.
All right, right on. I feel that. So,
Yeah.
all right, question for you now then. So I asked this a couple of different people, and Zach Brand actually was a funny one. Has What is the funniest thing a fan has asked you to sign? Because he told me a fan had asked him, a kid went up to him and asked him to sign his like forehead.
I've gotten a couple foreheads. Yeah, I don't know. I would just say any part of like your bare skin is a little strange, and it's usually like Zach said, it's usually the kids that do it. They kind of just come up and, hey, can you sign my arm? Can you sign my forehead? I'm like, is your mom or dad okay with this? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, sure, whatever, I'll do it. But other than that, nothing too crazy. I would just say any part of like the bare skin. That's probably been the most strange spot to sign an autograph.
Yeah, I don't understand what the point is of having someone
Yeah,
sign your forehead. I mean, like hopefully, I guess a kid it might be on there for a while. I
I was
mean,
gonna
like
say
some
that's gonna
kids.
take a couple showers to get off.
Yeah. So when you're
Yeah.
not playing baseball, what do you do? I know you're a golfer. You mentioned golf a couple times. What else do you do?
Uh, Golf. Play a couple of video games with my buddies. I like to. I'm starting to get back into reading a little bit. Read some books to buy some time. Take some notes with that. And then when we have free time, down here in Jupiter right now, we like to go to the beach a lot. Because like I said, some of the days with pitchers, we get done, relatively early in the day, noon or 1 or 2 o'clock. And so we'll get a group of guys ahead of the beach and kind of just hang out there. Um, Other than that, yeah, just, I like to go out to eat, have some dinners, go to some nice restaurants. Yeah, it's nothing too crazy.
What kind of music do you listen to? And like what is like your walk up song? I guess for a pitcher. Like, how often do you change that too?
The music I like to listen to, I'm a little bit of everything. I don't really have a specific
Mm-hmm.
type, but I like, R&B, rap, pop, country, kind of like chill music. My walkout last year was Coordinates by Travis Scott. But in that Pullman Field speaker, it didn't sound too great. So we made the most of it. But yeah, I like all types of music, and I will say music's honestly a big part of me. I like music, and just with being on the road all the time,
Mm-hmm.
like on the
Mm-hmm.
buses, the travel and stuff like that. I feel like you just gotta like music, or else you might just go crazy on the buses, the eight
Yeah.
hour long buses. So yeah,
No, I respect that. I mean, now you can listen to this
yeah,
podcast. Obviously, I mean,
that's
share
right. Yeah,
share
I'm tuning
share it
here.
with the boys. Get the word out.
Exactly,
I respect that.
exactly.
So before we end, let's end on this. Like, obviously you pitched in low A and high A, or was it just high A actually? No, you did low A and oh yeah, so just high A. below 8 last season.
Yeah,
You're going to
yeah.
head into Double A this season. What are some things that maybe you're working on, or you're looking to work on this upcoming season?
Uh, I would just say just staying healthy is the biggest thing. We play 140 games in the season, so the main goal is just to stay healthy because that's pretty taxing on your body. We play 6 out of 7 days a week. I guess for me, it's I pitch once a week, but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of preparation goes into that once a day a week. Just staying healthy, treating the body right. As far as pitching goes specifically, I always just take pride in throwing strikes, competing. Not ever let up, against a hitter. I got a couple pitches that I'm toying with right now that I like. But overall, nothing really too specific. Just kind of sticking with it.
Right on. Well, hey, I respect that. I'm thankful that you took your time. I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you taking some time to come on the podcast and
Yeah, no
talk to me.
problem.
I do appreciate that. I will continue to stay in contact. Maybe we'll have you back on another time. Hopefully
Absolutely.
in the future sometime.
All right, sounds. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it, man. Have a great night.
All right, you too.
All right.